Hello, Cradle to Kindy. It's Christine Jolly here, your parent coach. Together today, we're going to get into the topic of learning to use the toilets. Okay? Exciting times. It's a couple of months, if not years, ahead for some of you, but some of you are in the midst of it and you may have questions. So if you have questions right now, plug them into the comment section below and we'll try and get to them. If I don't get to them during this video, I will come back through and answer your questions, either send you some links to some articles or answer them right there in the comment section. If it gets just to be a bit too big, we might revisit this topic again next week for our next Q&A. So here we go, toilet learning. Me, as your parent coach, I work with you either one-on-one or weekly through these live Q&As, or in our membership groups. We've got one for newborns, babies, toddlers, and young children, and I work with you as your coach to brainstorm solutions for your family so that in the end you have peaceful homes, happy, peaceful children, and contented, and most importantly, confident parents who know what they're doing and have a good solid plan to go forward, having nurturing, respectful, and responsive relationships between themselves but also with their children. Goodo. Okay, toilet learning. So we've got a question from Amanda, whose 2-year-old little boy who has been nailing this toileting thing up until recently, feeling really confident with all of his wheeze and poos in the toilet, but as far as Amanda's aware, nothing major has changed in his life recently, so that's not something to sort of kick him back a few steps in the toilet learning process. So lots of questions going off in Amanda's head, and which is why she came to me for support with a question. Toilet learning for a 2-year-old who has already showed signs of getting it right, but all of a sudden he's pooing in his pants and he's wetting the bed overnight. So first of all, Amanda, take a deep breath, because this is normal, especially for this age and especially for boys. So what happens, come at me if you're watching this, come at me with some back and forth in the comment section, because I may ask some questions just for clarification. But what's happening with boys around this time is that their concentration levels are getting much better. And so what you'll find is that you've had morning tea, for example. You've washed your hands afterwards. You set them up with a bit of an activity on the floor. Maybe they're matchbox cars or toy animals, or maybe they're in the sand pit. And then they get really into whatever their activity is going, that their mind is so focused that they're not realizing, they're not receiving the messages that their body is telling them, I need to do a wee, or I need to do a poo. Or those messages might actually register while they're still focused, and yet to go and meet that need that their body is telling them to do would require them to break that concentration and stop that intense moment of play. Now, you and I, we kind of really hate to do that too, and we're watching something on television and we're crossing our legs or we're holding it like, oh, if I just stay 1 or 2 more minutes, I'll see the climax and what's going to happen. And then, but we realize, no, if I don't go right now, something bad's going to happen. So at this age, they don't have that big picture awareness to realize if they don't meet this bodily need, something bad might happen, like they'll get themselves wet or they'll poo their pants. So this is all very developmentally appropriate. So our 2-year-old who's been potty trained or toilet learned and shows really, really good signs of doing poos and wees in the toilet has all of a sudden start pooing his pants. And I think that this is a big key area for little boys where they're in intense periods of play, either not receiving those messages from the body because their brain is so focused, or they are receiving it but suppressing that message so that they can continue this play. Now, this is where you come in, Amanda. What you can do in this situation is usually, especially with poos, we know just by observing over a period of days and weeks, we know when their poo usually comes, either in the morning or the afternoon or the evening. And so we can keep an eye on it. And let's just say that after you've done morning tea or after you've done lunch, whenever you have a good idea that the poo is going to happen soon, about half an hour maybe before that normally happens, I want you to announce a trip to the toilet. And let this be a normal part of your routine. And what may have been happening in your relationship is that there's a shift in connection when a child goes from being in a nappy or a diaper to toileting and being independent on their own. There's so many great things and great benefits to being a big boy and a big girl. But these little ones are clever, and they realize that going and doing a poo or a wee on the toilet is a moment when they're no longer connected with you. They no longer have your full attention, and this growing up and being independence has actually lost them a moment of connection with you. So sometimes this kind of going backwards with the toileting is due for a bid to connect. So why not reintroduce that good, solid moment of connection by using this moment that you've planned, half hour before they normally do a poo, is, a trip to the toilet. I want you to bring one of their favorite books in there with them, and I want you to be all in, all present. View this as a really genuine, connecting, caring moment. Yes, in the toilet room, but this might be what your child was missing, okay? And we can give that to him. So bring in his favorite book, get down on his level, don't have an agenda, just say this is what we're doing after morning tea. We're sitting on the toilet for a bit because usually a poo likes to come then. And you and I are going to read your favorite story, and we're going to connect, and we're going to talk, and it might take 10 minutes. It might take 15 minutes, but be all in because there's been a shift. And sometimes being a big boy isn't all it's cracked up to be. And sometimes there's some shame that a child feels when the child can't live up to the standard of big boy or little girl or big girl. And so if we can take away those labels, take away the pressure, and just be with our child in that moment, you might see a big change in his whole demeanor, especially around toilet learning. Okay, now about the wetting the bed. I'm going to assume, because you said that sometimes that you might be changing the sheets up to 3 times in a night. So I'm gauging that he's in his underwear instead of in a pull-up. We're just going to go and reintroduce the pull-up pants for nighttime till he gets back into a comfortable pace overnight. Now sometimes little boys and girls are even wetting right through the pull-up pants. They're pretty much a nappy or a diaper that you just pull up. In that case, make sure, if you haven't already been doing it, that the toilet is part of the nighttime bath routine. And before going to bed, it might happen, you brush your teeth first, then go to the toilet, have a bit of a drink, or actually scrap that. If you're going to work on that nighttime weeing, make sure that he doesn't have a drink for a good half hour before you put him to bed. See how that goes. Do it over 2 weeks. So no drinks, no liquids, a good half hour before bed. Make sure the toilet is part of that going to bed routine. And then off to bed and using those pull-up pants. And don't take them off until he's been completely dry for at least a week, 7 days in a row. And it's okay. It's okay for him to wear, pull-up pants. Some children are wearing pull-up pants until they're 8, and that's fine. No one's to know any different at nighttime. It's okay. I wouldn't recommend this though. You do have the option of getting your son up as you're about to go to bed, let's say 9:30 or 10, and just getting him up and, taking him to the toilet and then putting him right back to bed. And usually he's half asleep anyway while he's sitting there on the toilet doing his wee. And then you put him back to bed and he just turns over and goes straight to sleep. You have that option. You can play around with it. Let me know how you go. It's not necessary, though. Another thing to be mindful of is that our bodies are at its coldest temperature around 3 a.m., which tends to match the outdoors coldest temperature is around 3 a.m. It reaches its coldest point. And so when our bodies cool down to that point, we often feel the stimulation of the need to do a wee. If you think he's consistently sort of wetting himself around 3 a.m., you can throw on an extra layer of clothing to make sure he's not cold at that time. And do this when you're putting him to bed, not having to wake up yourself at 3 and put on an extra blanket. So there's some options available to you. So Amanda, I want you to connect with him, and I want you to be mindful, watch for when the poo normally comes, and choose half an hour beforehand to use a moment of connection in the toilet together. Be all in, 100% present, no distractions, and then, see how you go. And do touch base and let me know how you're going, and if any other issues come up with this toilet learning process, we can definitely work through them. Again, let's just see if there's any questions underneath this topic. Thanks for your patience, everyone. Okay, now, last week we started covering the topic of using the circle of security as our sort of springboard to understanding our relationship with our children. And so in the circle of security, as just a reminder, we are the hands in the picture. So we are the hands, we are a safe haven for when our children need to come in and feel support and connection. And we are a support for them to go out and explore. So they're free to come in and feel supported. They're free to go out and feel supported. And so that's our responsibility here. And around the circle of security, our children need certain things from us. So when they go out, they want to feel supported. They want to be delighted in. They want us to help organize their thoughts and feelings. And the same when they come in, they want to feel supported in coming in to feel nurtured and help us to help them to organize their thoughts and feelings if they're feeling sad or distressed or even excited, helping to understand that feeling, and to be with them in that moment. Now, when we resist our responsibility within that circle of security, there's some learned behavior that comes into play. So let's say that our child wants to go out and explore their surroundings and experience a bit of independence and try new things. We can support them in that. But let's say that we feel uncomfortable with that. Now, this isn't in a situation where it's not safe for them to do so. It's very much safe for them to go out and explore and, learn new things. So let's say in that moment, we feel uncomfortable, and I want you to label this as your shark music. So in your head, shark music is playing. Da-da, 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 da-da. And your body is telling you, I'm uncomfortable with this situation. There isn't actually anything unsafe or wrong. Something in you is uncomfortable with your child going out and exploring. So what happens is you feel shark music, and your child can generate, and you want to stop that going out. Your child, over a period of time, learns that my going out makes us feel uncomfortable. And I say us because whenever mommy or daddy is uncomfortable, the child is uncomfortable. So there is a collective feeling of discomfort whenever I want or I need to go out. And so when that shark music comes, the child learns, mommy, we feel uncomfortable when I need or I want to go out. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to miscue so mommy doesn't feel uncomfortable, so we don't feel uncomfortable. I'm going to miscue, and I'm going to pretend or act like I need to actually come in for comfort. So on this side of the circle of security. It can go the other way as well. Some parents find that their shark music occurs when their child has been out here exploring, but their shark music comes in here when their child comes in for connection, to be with, to be nurtured, to come to you, to help organize their thoughts and feelings. And for whatever reason, maybe you don't know how, maybe you find closeness and proximity and emotion something you personally struggle with. And so when your child comes in for that being with moment, your shark music comes on, and your child over time learns that this makes us feel uncomfortable. Again, it makes mommy or daddy feel uncomfortable. As a result, I feel uncomfortable. And so they have a learned response that coming in makes us feel uncomfortable. So I'm going to miscue, and I'm going to act as if I need to go out and explore. And I'm going to fight you off, and I'm going to go out and explore. But really what I need is I need to come in. Now that might be confusing, but what I'm asking you to do this week, based on we've got our circle of security, I want you to pay attention to your shark music, because generally parents fall into one of these two categories where you either feel uncomfortable with your child going out, and if you have multiple children, your shark music might be different for the different children. You might be totally fine with one of your children going out, but you feel uncomfortable with them coming into you. Whereas another child, you're totally cool with them coming in, but you really don't like it when they go out to explore and try new things and learn new things. And so it might be different for you, it might be different for the different children. So first of all, I want you to be aware. So just observe yourself, pay attention to your body and what your body is trying to tell you, and what the cues it's sending you, and say, that's my shark music playing. Now, once you hear the shark music playing, then I want you to just stand back and observe yourself, ask yourself a couple of questions. Why am I uncomfortable with this? Is it because my child's not safe? Is it because I'm not safe? Maybe even just be honest with yourself. Say, I don't know why I feel this way, but what I do know is that this is shark music. I am safe, he is safe. My child has this need to go out. It's safe for him to do so. So I am going to choose to respond to my child's need, even though I feel uncomfortable. And that could be either the coming in or the going out. So this week, I need for you to focus and just observe yourself, listen to your body, find those moments where you hear shark music, step back and observe, ask yourself a couple of questions, and realize that you have a choice. You don't have to act based on that shark music, and if you're uncomfortable with your child going out and you're attempting to keep them in, and then causing them to miscue and exhibit some strange behavior when they would normally want or need to go out, but they're acting as if they need to come in for comfort, begin noticing that. And just noticing that leads to you to reflect on that. And then once you reflect on that, you can then make choices that are better for you and your child and your relationship as a whole. Now, let me give you an example. This is actually not between a parent and a child, but just so that you can understand the concept of miscuing. This happens between couples. So your husband has been out. It's on the weekend. Your husband's been out spending some time with his mates, and he comes in, and he says, "How was your day?" And you respond, "Fine." And he asks you a couple of other questions, and you just give him one syllable questions like, "No, yep, fine, yeah." Now, what you really want is you really want to connect with him. Deep down inside, you really want to connect with him. But what you're doing is not allowing that connection because you've learned this behavior, that there's been past experiences where you have tried and attempted to deeply connect with your partner, but you've been met with, a bit of pushback, a bit of maybe even some of those monosyllable answers as well. And you've put up this barrier, this protection around your heart, knowing that if I don't have this deep and meaningful conversation with him, I'll be protected and I won't be hurt. And so you have a learned response of going out, when really what you want and what you need is to come in and feel nurtured and connected and to be with your partner. Does that make sense? So you do this too in other relationships. You miscue. There are relationship moments where you need and you want to go out and explore and learn new things and try new things and be apart, which is fine and healthy. There's also times when you want to come in, but you have a learned response based on your partner's levels of discomfort and your partner's own shark music, where you've learned behavior to miscue as your own sort of protective mechanism. So this week, observe yourself, reflect on your moments when you notice your body telling you the shark music is present, and make choices. You've got a choice. Okay, now, just coming through, just seeing if we have any comments that I can address before we move on. If you haven't already, I have oh, here we go. Amanda, I'm so sorry. There's lots of comments under here. Thank you for answering my question. Very helpful. And the possible lack of connection is something I hadn't considered. Amanda, give it a try and let me know how it goes. Yeah, because that's a big thing. Big boys miss their mama. And that time when it was just the two of them, even if it was a bit yuck, changing a nappy. Jessica Campbell says, my 10-week-old baby is breastfed. Should I be concerned that he cries and pulls back from a feed towards the end? He doesn't want to go back on. So is he just full? My first baby didn't do this. Jessica, yep, so yeah, 10 weeks old is, oh, yeah. Okay, so babies are all different and they all feed differently. My first baby, she fed for almost her entire awake time, whereas my second baby was much more efficient at feeding and my breasts were much more developed, and so feeding didn't take nearly as long for my second. And at 10 weeks, they probably become more efficient, and so if your baby finishes within a quicker amount of time, it probably just means that they've developed and that they've gotten what they need. Now, the pulling away and crying might be a bit of wind, and so that just means responding to your baby's crying. When you're pulling back, you're not going to force a feed if your child doesn't want it. And so bringing them up and giving their back a nice big rub, seeing if there's any wind causing them distress, giving them a moment to burp. And if your baby is calm up there and you do see if, okay, maybe the wind has come through, I'll go and try and finish the feed if he's interested. But if he's not interested, he's not interested. And there's no reason that you need to force the matter. It's really important to respect your baby's cues around hunger and fullness. And especially even as they get older and later, and even when they're starting solids, and respecting when they're full. So even at 10 weeks, we can respect that. If your baby is done with the feed and is not interested in continuing, that's okay. Jasmine says, how to get baby to stop waking after the first hour of each day nap. Oh, Jasmine, thank you for your question. Yes. Here's what's happening. And this is something that happens to you and I too. So for your baby, a sleep cycle is about 45 minutes, so almost an hour, like you said. And what's happening is that as your baby comes, so let's say we have a bit of a graph here. Here's asleep, and then your baby comes down into a nice deep sleep for the first sleep cycle. And as they're coming out of the sleep cycle, it gets very close to that awake mark. And your baby might exhibit signs of being awake. Their eyelids might be flipped. Their eyelids might even be open. And they may be making sounds, but they're still actually in a very light level of sleep. They're not actually fully awake. Their brain is actually still in sleeping mode. And so what you can do is make sure their room, first of all, is nice and dark. If you're not already using white noise at sort of a medium, even medium loud level, make sure you're using that. And so as they're coming up, so they've been asleep, they're coming up near that awake level, give them space to find their way back down to the next sleep cycle. So ideally for a baby's nap, depending on how old they are, you want it to be at least 2 sleep cycles, so an hour and a half. So what you do in between those 2 sleep cycles is give them space, make sure the room is nice and dark, and have some white noise. And if your baby's young enough and not rolling, have a good arms down swaddle so that when they come to that wakefulness in between the 2 sleep cycles, they're not jerking themselves awake. So nice, snug arms down swaddle will help you achieve that. Thank you for your questions, Jessica, Amanda, and Jasmine. And I will be with you again next week. But if you have any questions in the middle of the week, please do consider the membership program. If you go to my website, cradletokindy.com.au, the 2 is number 2. I've got options to work with families one-on-one, either a coaching call or in your home, but I highly recommend joining the membership program that's available for each of the different age groups so that you have access to me throughout the week, but also to some really amazing files that I use with my clients in their home and during my coaching calls. So if you're more of a DIY type person, you can access those same documents and read through them, come into the membership group, ask a couple of questions, make sure you're headed on the right track. And then we as a community of other members and clients and myself can support you as you make some changes that you might need to make in your parenting direction. So have a look at the different coaching groups. So there's a newborn option, baby, toddler, and young children. Click on those. And then you can either choose member, coaching call, or home visit. And I'm there to support you through the week, not just on Fridays for a live Q&A. It's been a pleasure. I'll see you next week. And then I think I have one more week after that. And then I'm going on holidays to visit my parents, Oma and Opa, in Germany. But I'll see you around. They've got internet in Germany. Bye.